everyone. This time you can watch me make a mixed media abstract ocean beach painting. I used a lot of different supplies to create this painting and I hope you will enjoy watching it. So I'm starting with masking tape to define the area where I want to have my sky and ocean. Before I'm going to add acrylic paint, I'm adding a layer of Liquitex wetting spray. And this spray will prevent that the colors will dry out too soon. And what I also did is add some Liquitex slow dry gel to the paints. And what the title already mentioned, it slows down the drying time with about 40 minutes. So that way I can work a little bit longer in the wet paint. So the first colors you saw me add were Amsterdam Titanium White, Winsor & Newton Buff Titanium, and Cadmium Pale Yellow. And the colors I'm using now are Cadmium Orange, Cadmium Red, and Permanent Magenta. And what I do is I have three colors on one palette, and then I make sure that I have all the three colors on my brush. Now I'm going to start on a part of the ocean, and those colors are deep turquoise, phthalo blue, phthalo green, and ultramarine. And also I make sure that I have all the four colors on my brush, and then I add it onto my canvas. And what my intention is to blend all those colors together. So this will not be a detailed painting. The sky and the ocean, what I want is that I have a nice blend of colors. There you can see it. Trying to blend the colors with each other. And after I add the wet paint onto my canvas, I'm using a dry brush to blend all the colors. Yeah, my canvas is about 60 by 80 centimeters, so very large. I like to work on large canvases for these kinds of paintings. And this way I'm building the layer for, yeah, the sunset, the sky, and the ocean. Adding some white to create highlights in the ocean, but also shadows. But again, this will not be a detailed sky or a detailed ocean. I also have a piece of paper to clean my brush. Yeah, and the white that I'm adding is the reflection of the sun on the ocean, on the water. There you can see it again. I'm using a dry brush to blend the colors. But I make sure every time I blend it with a dry brush, I clean that brush. Adding more white. Yeah, what I mentioned, I've used a lot of supplies to create this painting. So the first supply is acrylic paint, but I'm also going to use some nice materials to create texture. And also going to use resin. And this is a longer video because, yeah, I want to show you as much as possible of the process. There you can see it again. I'm using a dry brush to blend the yellow that I added with the other colors. Now I'm adding some red and orange. And blending the colors with my dry brush. Yeah, normally when I make these kinds of paintings, I don't have a plan in my head. Yeah, I have a plan that I want to make a ocean beach painting and which colors I'm going to use, but not, yeah, where I want every single color placed on the canvas. That is all based on feeling or maybe experience, because in the past I made a lot of acrylic paintings. So yeah, where I think it needs a lighter color, I add it, and also with the darker colors, more white. I can see it. Blending it with my dry brush. Removing the tape. That way I can see how it looks on the bottom part of the ocean. Yeah, this painting will get also some nice textures, because I like it when a painting has nice shiny parts, but also matte, rough textures against each other. And I'm also going to use some supplies I've never used before, so that will be a little bit of an experiment. But you will see that later in the video. Also, all the supplies I'm using you can find at the end of the video, but also in the description below this video with the link to the websites. So if you're curious, please check out the description box. So I'm almost done with the acrylic parts, and then I'm going to the next step. Yeah, now I'm going to add some texture, and this part should resemble an old brick wall. And I'm going to use swamp lime or pit lime with marble flour. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. I will add a link in the right corner to a video in which I show you how I mix this texture. And I add water to the consistency that I like. And then with my palette knife, I add it onto my canvas. And as I mentioned, I add water, and water is not a binder. So this texture doesn't have a binder. So after it's dry, I need to seal it so that it will stick to the canvas. But I will also show you how I do that. So with my palette knife, I spread the texture, and this texture, when it dries, it will create nice cracks. And if you add a thick layer, then the cracks will be very large. And yeah, a thin layer, small cracks. Yeah, in this part of the video, I'm going to use Eco Resin, and it's a two-component material. It's a powder and a liquid, and it's a ratio of 1 part liquid and 2.5 parts powder. So I'm adding 125 gram into my cup, and in another cup I'm going to add 50 gram of liquid. You can also mix this powder with water, but yeah, I bought it and I got this with it. So I'm going to use it. And then bit by bit, I need to add the powder to the liquid. I've never used this before. And I'm also going to color it in 2 colors, mixing it very well. And you can also, I think you can also use this material in a silicone mold to make coasters or whatever. But I'm going to use it for something different, for a material that I'm going to use in my ocean beach painting. Now I'm going to divide it in 2 cups because I want to have 2 colors. There you can see it, mixing it. Yeah, also this material I've never used, so I don't know how much color I can add. So I only add a little bit by bit, then to see how the color looks. And if it's not dark enough, then I'm adding a little bit more. And now I'm going to pour it onto a plastic sheet and blend those 2 colors together. And I want to have it about 3 millimeters thick, not too thick, because I want to use it in my painting. Spreading it with my palette knife. Because I'm going to use this in the ocean part. You will see that later. There you can see it, spraying it with my palette knife. And then I will let this dry for at least 24 hours. Yes, I also added some white. And now I'm going to make small pieces. There you can see it. I'm breaking it, and that's why I don't want it too thick. And these pieces I'm going to use in my ocean beach painting. I thought that would look nice, a nice texture. Yeah, now I'm going to start on the beach part. So the bottom part should resemble a low old brick wall, and this part should resemble the beach. And I'm not going to make this really thick, because if I make this thick, then I will get large cracks. I don't want that. And this is, by the way, the same texture paste as I use for the bottom part. So the swamp lime, pit lime, and marble flour with water. So also this part I need to seal because it has no binder. Water is not a binder. Yeah, I also decided to make the ocean part a little bit bigger. I didn't show you that in my video, but it's a little bit larger now. There you can see it. I'm adding the small pieces onto my canvas in the texture paste. And these pieces should resemble the waves and some rocks or yeah. It's abstract, so I thought it looks nice and it also gives a nice texture. Yeah, now I'm going to start with the old brick wall. There you can see that I'm tapping on the back of the canvas, and then all those pieces will come loose, and then I can create a nice old wall effect, and you can arrange those pieces as you want. And I'm also going to color the texture, and I'm using for the colors the Colorex watercolors in the color cyan, turquoise, ultramarine for the ocean part. There you can see it, and I've diluted it with water. And what I experience is that the texture paste absorbs the color, so I will be adding more layers. And as you can see, all the pieces, small pieces, are still loose, so I need to seal this texture that it will stick to the canvas. And also some nice saffron color, there you can see it, and a primary yellow, and all the colors at the moment are diluted with water. Also, the link to these colors you can find in the description below this video. Now I'm starting on the bottom part with two colors, the primary yellow and the saffron. I speeded this video very much because yeah, then if I don't do that, then I have a very long video. Yeah, and again, I'm trying to blend the colors. I'm pouring the color on top of the texture. There you can see it. And also for this, I'm building the layer of color. But I'm very happy how the sky looks and the ocean part. Yeah, the dark blue color. On top of that, there will be a different supply, a supply that I've never used before. So, yeah, a little bit scary. But I saw someone use it in a video and I thought it was so pretty. So I want to try it. Again, the saffron color, nice orange color. More blue. And now I'm adding directly out of the jar the color. There you can see it. And then blending it with the other colors. So no water added. This color is directly out of the jar. Also for the brick wall, what should resemble a brick wall. And there you can see this is an acrylic binder. This binder you can use to make your own acrylic paints or to wet pigments, mica pigments, but you can also use this to seal colors. Then it will act like a kind of glue. So I need to make sure that this acrylic binder also gets into the cracks because then all those parts will stick to the canvas. And that's what I want. And I'm using a spray bottle and it's a 1-to-1 ratio with water. So in this part, I'm going to add a layer of resin onto the sky and the ocean and also the beach, but not the brick wall on the bottom part. So that part will be without resin. And I'm going to add a thin layer, not too thick. And normally, if I add a resin onto a canvas, then I also add a thin layer of resin on the back of the canvas because otherwise I have a problem that the resin will, yeah, flow to the middle of the canvas, and that's not what I want. So I added already before I started on this painting a thin layer of resin on the back of the painting of the canvas, and then you don't have a problem with resin flowing into the center of the canvas. I'm spreading it with my fingers. Don't forget the sides. Also on top of those pieces I made, small pieces in blue and white. And I'm using the resin from Resin Pro, and it's the Art Pro resin, a medium viscosity resin. So not on the bottom part of the painting, but only on the sky, ocean, and the beach. Because what I mentioned, I like it when I have shiny parts in the painting, but also matte, rough textures. And then, especially when they lay next together, next to each other, adding more of those small pieces in the color white into the resin. Yeah, at the end of the video, I'm also going to show you a close-up, and then you can see the colors much better and the nice textures. Yes, now I'm going to use something that I've never used before, but before I'm going to use it, I need to have a base layer for that. So I'm using chalk paint, white chalk paint, and I'm coloring it with Vallejo Mars Yellow. There you can see it. And then I will add this color onto the dark blue color that you see above the small pieces. There you can see it. This color is very opaque, and I need to have that. So again, another supply, a different texture. And a material that I've never used before. So that's also exciting. Drying it with my heat gun because I want to add another layer. Yeah, now I'm going to use acoustic wax. I've never used this before. I saw someone use it and I thought, yeah, that's nice. I also want to try it. And yeah, I'm going to use different colors, a white, dark blue, turquoise, and I'm also going to mix some colors with a medium. And the colors I'm using for that are from Ether Art, They are pigment drops. There you can see it. I'm adding white, yellow, and I'm also going to use dark blue. But yeah, I've never used this before, so yeah, I need to find out how it works. You can also see me struggle at some time, but yeah. And I'm using a hot plate because I need to melt the wax. And what I already know is that those small jars or whatever you call it are too small for my brushes. So I need to buy new ones. But yeah, the first color I'm adding is a nice light yellow. And also on top of those small pieces I added into the resin. But yeah, this also should be a part of the ocean and the beach. So I need to use blue colors, but also yellow colors. Yeah, you can see it. A very dark turquoise color, deep turquoise. And then I'm trying to blend the colors, but yeah, it's totally different material than acrylics. That's what I experience. It dries very fast. So what I wanted is to blend the colors, but yeah, it's not possible to blend wet. So what I saw in some of videos of other artists that they use a heat gun to melt the wax again when it's on a canvas or a torch. There you can see it. I'm using a heat gun to melt the wax and then to blend the colors. But yeah, it's all new, and I really didn't know how this wax reacts. And yeah, that is by doing it, then I can learn what I can do with it. Adding more yellow. Yeah, normally what I already said earlier is when I work on these kinds of paintings, then yeah, it's all based on feeling. And yeah, I just go with the flow. Where I think a color should be, I add it. Yeah, it's very difficult to explain. Adding more white. Also on top of those pieces there, you can see it. Yeah, I'm just adding now the color onto my hot plate. You can clean it very easy, so that's no problem. There you can see it. Because it works much easier than out of those small pans or jars or whatever you call it. But I'm adding white on top of those small pieces I've added into the resin. I think that will look nice. Also, no wax on top of the brick wall. But for sure, I'm going to use this wax again. And yeah, learn what I can do with it. Yeah, there you can see it. I'm using the torch. And I'm trying to melt the wax again and to blend those colors. Because that's what I saw in other videos. Adding more of the darker blue color. Because it needs to be a part of the ocean. And I want to connect the acrylic part of the ocean with this wax part. Here I'm adding more white and some turquoise. So this will be a wax layer, but on top of this wax, I'm going to add another supply to create, yeah, some nice effects on top of the wax. So the wax is dry, and now I'm going to add shellac onto the wax layer. There you can see it. And this shellac, I think normally you use it to on furniture for a finish layer, but I'm going to use it on top of wax. I'm also going to color it with the Et Art pigment drops. There you can see it. The first color was white, but it will not get totally white. It's a beige color. And the second color is a dark blue and a yellow. And I'm also using a safety mask because you don't want to breathe in those fumes of this shellac because it's not good for your health. And a light blue color. And on top of the wax, I'm going to add this liquid. And then hopefully I can create some nice effects. There you can see it. Starting with the beige color, the white. And this liquid is alcohol based. And to create nice effects, I need to use a torch. So I need to wait until this liquid is totally dry because otherwise I get flames and I don't want that. But that's also when you use alcohol ink in a silicone mold to create some nice effects. Wait till the alcohol evaporates and then you can use a torch. So again, try to blend the colors on top of the wax layer. It doesn't look pretty at the moment, but hopefully when I'm done, it's nice. But I'm very pleased with the sky and the acrylic ocean part, and also with the brick wall. Let me know what you think so far of this painting. More of the darker blue color. Yeah, and I had really so much fun creating this painting. I love to use different materials in one painting. There you can see it. I'm using a torch onto that liquid layer, which is now dry, and I hope to create some nice effects, and it looks like lacing what you can create in resin paintings. I will show a close up when I'm done with it, but it really looks like lacing. Very nice. There you can see it. So you can see the wax color shining through. And for my first try, I'm really happy how it looks. Yeah, this is a close up right after I've done this. Then you can see some nice effects, hopefully. There you can see it. It looks like glazing, but you also can create in resin. Really nice. Nice colors. Yeah, I'm very pleased. So this is the end result. I have it outside in the daylight and I'm really happy how it looks. Let me know what you think, but yeah, I'm really happy. All those nice textures and sky and part of the ocean with the resin, I like it a lot. And for sure, I'm going to use that wax again because, yeah, this was my first time. And also the shellac, when I added on top. There you can see, yeah, what should resemble a brick wall, an old brick wall that I colored with the correct colors. The small pieces I made with the eco resin. And there you can see up close the textures and the effects I made with the shellac. It really looks like lacing. It really looks like lacing. So let me know what you think of this painting. And I hope you enjoyed watching it. And I hope that I inspired you all to try this. It's so much fun. And there the nice bright colors of the sky. Also the wax on top of those small pieces is very nice. A little bit closer there. Yeah, all the materials, what I already mentioned, I've used, you can find in the description below this video, but also at the end of the video with a link to the websites. And also, I also have some promo codes, don't forget, also in the description. Yeah, really nice effects. So I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe I will see you in my next video. Bye.